Instead of, if there's a 50-50, you don't know anybody, I just always think you see the good. And a lot of times people would criticise me and say, mate, you only see the good out of this person. But I just think it's human nature. If you see the bad in someone, you're just always going to be negative.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the One Shot Movement podcast, where we dive deep into all the successful entrepreneurs making things happen. So we're going to talk about story, building wisdom, challenges that people have been on the journey to success. And I'm here today with one of my super good friends. We've known each other for the best part of 12, 13 years. And the reason I wanted to get this man, Mr. Matthew Pillios, on my show was because I would describe Matt as one of the best networkers, the best relationship builders, and watching his journey over the last 12 to 13 years with business and growth to now one of the leading real estate gurus in Australia, I wanted to really get him on and share a bit about his story and challenges and adversities and the big wins along the way. Just to give a bit more backstory to Matt, he's a highly accomplished sports commentator for Fox Sports. He's the UFC representative for Australia UFC. We're both passionate fans of that sport. We often talk about that sport off TV. He's hosting, he raises money, he's involved with an incredible charity called Love Me, Love You, and we'll talk a bit about that and the passion he's got for that as well. But I could go on and on and on, but if I was to describe Matty, he's a networker, he's a hustler, he builds relationships, he gives a lot more than he receives often, and so glad to have him on the show. So welcome, Matty.
Schultzy, absolute privilege. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hope you're well, and Happy New Year.
Cool. And look, I want you to just share a bit about your story, because your journey in business, you've been in business for a long time, has evolved and changed along the journey. Do you want to share a bit about that?
For business, look, life, as you know, you go through highs and lows, and in business I've been through recent times some great highs and a lot of times some lows, and took some risks. I probably didn't plan as well back my time, and it's good to be back on an upward trend, so hopefully I can keep that. But been in real estate now for 5 years, and it's tracking really well. If the market goes better, we go better. But really happy where I am with myself and Marshall White in Melbourne.
And for you, I guess, along the journey, we've known each other for a long time. I've seen you do lots of things in terms of, always putting yourself out there, networking, helping people, hosting events. You nearly speak at every person's wedding as an MC. You're sitting in the front row with all the sports stars at the basketball. You are a great networker. Why do you do that so much?
I just love it. I have so much energy, and I just think sitting at a pub getting drunk or sitting at home watching so much TV is just not worth it. I'd rather I love people, and I just love being out there and enjoying my time. If it's not with my wife and kids, with good people, and enjoying myself. So it's hard to say, but I've always just loved people and good people. So it's easy for me to do, and I feel privileged to be able to hang out with some of the best.
And like you are hanging around with the stars of the stars, and one of the things that I certainly want to go on in my journey, because I'm a passionate sports fan myself, but you host tours out to the US and create experiences, and you've had so many amazing people go on those tours. Do you want to share a bit about that?
Yeah, and firstly, this is the only time you'll see me out of a suit. It's the start of the real estate year, Schultzy. So, and I've rocked up in Schultzy's on his podcast with a cap, and you should see his board shorts. So this is the most casual you'll see me, but and it's a privilege to be here. With the tours I was doing some commentating on with the UFC, and a good friend of mine, ex-AFL player Corey McKernan, I think won a Brownlow medal, great man. He did a lot of tours in the early 2010 sort of series of the Gridiron, the Super Bowl, the PGA, the US Masters, and the UFC started to grow, and Corey's into his American sports. So Corey said, Matt, he said, I don't know anything about the sport. You commentate for the leagues underneath the UFC here in Australasia, and you're involved with the UFC. Can you host a tour for me? And he said, I'll pay for you. And mate, for me to get to America 4 or 5 years ago for free was a bonus. I asked my wife. She said, I know how much you love the UFC. So I had accommodation in Vegas for never been there. Vegas 4 years ago for 4 nights, and I had free UFC tickets and got to host. And since then, and Corey sold his business, and myself and my wife started hosting a UFC celebrity VIP tour, which is perfect for me because in July the real estate world is dead. It's school holidays. It's the coldest time of Melbourne, and it's UFC International Fight Week in Las Vegas. So that's the reason I go there. I don't gamble. I don't drink a lot. I love the UFC, live and breathe it, and I love hosting the tour. And I'll probably do another one in 2020.
Wow, and you have had, you say VIP, celebrity. Who's some of the people that you've had come on your tours?
Yeah, Campbell Brown has been our main one, former. He's Channel 7, Hawthorn, great guy. You won't see a guy with better personality than Brownie. He's great because he's very academic and he comes from a polished private school background, but he's a lad. He's an ex-AFL footballer. He loves his poker. He loves his UFC. So he's one of the guys that hosts with me. Obviously, we've had Corey McKernan, Shane Warne we've had as a VIP guest to a lot of the dinners and come with the fans. So when 15, 20 Aussies come to the UFC, Craig, to have Warney come there with him is unbelievable. And I'll tell a story about him in a second. In Las Vegas, Tony Ferguson, who fights Khabib Nurmagomedov next month, he would come to dinner. Luke Rockhold. So we've had some great names in the last 3 or 4 years when we've done it.
Cool. And also just on Shane Warne, for our international viewers that don't follow cricket, because there are some nations that follow this podcast, Shane, recently Australia's been under attack, might be the not the right word, but we've had a really bad bushfire season, and he put his most prized possession up for auction, which was a cap, his cricket cap for his sport, and he raised over $1 million to give back, which is an incredible effort from such an amazing person. So it would be truly amazing to be on a tour with him. Yeah,
he's one of the greatest sportsmen of all time, but one of the greatest humans of all time. And anyone that knows him, I know Stephen Baker, a friend of both of ours, he just talks. Campbell Brown, I've met Warney a lot of times in Brighton because he actually lives in the same suburb, but he's just one of the greatest of all time in all aspects.
As you can see, Matt is super complimentary for everyone. Maybe it is a skill for being a top real estate agent, but talk about, I guess, some of the, how to build relationships, and you put yourself out there, you give with a good heart. Is that something that come naturally? Were you doing that from a very young age, or you've consciously put yourself in that position to do that?
Good question. My parents always taught me to work hard when I was young. I think at 13, 14, I was working at Coles stacking shelves. Look, my mum gave a lot to her local church growing up, so I think I probably got that from her, and I just love to make people happy. And instead of, if there's a 50-50, you don't know anybody, I just always think you see the good. And a lot of times people would criticise me and say, mate, you only see the good out of this person. But I just think it's human nature. If you see the bad in someone, you're just always going to be negative. But if you see the best, and sometimes you just got to live and learn and be street smart. But we're here to love and give in life, and the more you give in life, things come back to you. And I don't do it for that reason, but it's just natural, and I love seeing people happy and putting a smile on people's face.
And ironically, a common friend of ours who's also a guest on this show as well, you both grew up together, Andrew Morello, the winner of The Apprentice. Yes. But I would have to say,
he's a great man.
You two guys would be the best two networkers that I know, personally, the way you go about that. But ironically, you were both very good friends. So
yeah, he's a great man, Andrew Morello. He texted me last night and coincidentally didn't know I was actually going to be in the podcast. So Andrew Morello and our sisters are really good friends, and our parents are good friends, both sort of European Aussies that grew up in Essendon, Moonee Ponds. His parents had but he's a gem of a guy. He won The Apprentice and obviously very successful since he's moved to Sydney, running Yellow Brick Road with Mark Bouris, and I love that guy. And if he looks after his fitness, he's an absolute superstar, but a great family. And a great man, Andrew Morello, is good to follow.
And he's another guest on the show as well. So we'll dive deep into relationship building with him. But talk a bit about adversity and challenge. And you're a very positive guy and always upbeat. And you've mentioned you see the good in people. But, everyone will face challenges. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when and how often.
Yeah.
What about some of your challenges along your journey?
Yeah, for sure. I reckon through life, 41 years old now, probably went through some as 13, 14 as a teenager. I moved schools a lot, and I ended up in year 7 or 8 in a pretty rough school. It was out Nidri High, which sort of bordered Bloody Park, Broadmeadows, and some tough areas back in the mid-early 90s. And I went through a lot of bullying. I went from primary school to a high school. I had no mates there, and it was tough times. So I went through a lot of adversity, changing high schools 3 times through the journey, and that was probably the first time in life, to get through that. Sort of seasoned me when I sort of got to 17, 18. And then probably happened again in my 20s, just hanging out with sort of a bit lost and sort of got to early 20s and a bit lost in life, and not sort of finding yourself and financially struggling. I actually did a marketing degree at university, but just was lost. I didn't have probably good mentors. I'll always teach young people, and I'll catch up with a lot of AFL footballers and just say, I wish that in my 20s I had some mentors. Once a month for a coffee, just some. That's one thing. So, I just was probably partying. I went into going to nightclubs and bars, and obviously had an obsession for women in my early 20s, as we do. And I just wish I was a bit lost. So I went through it a couple of times, and then in business probably 10 years ago, owning a couple of properties with my lovely wife and having a couple of young kids, I invested in some businesses that I thought would do great, nightclub and bars, and probably 12 years ago, ego was probably a little bit, I thought it was cool. Just always thought if I've got my physical health and mental health and my family, that's all, you're born with that, you're gifted. As you look around the world, there's people with sicknesses and poverty. So I just thought I'd grind and hustle and get myself back, and, when things are going great. But you need good people around you, and you just need a great mindset.
And it's such a, I guess when you can be really vulnerable like that and talk about that too, I think, you get real comfortable with, the achievements. And when you rise through the adversity, and this podcast, this book was really me going through adversity and an awakening, losing a boy, stillborn, and then, having a good journey in business and now wanting to give back. But being able to talk about that, it's a real healing thing to do.
For sure it is. It's definitely. And I just want to say about this, man, when I was going through that tough time, I met you through a great mutual friend, Brodie Holland. And you were just so inspirational, because with your network marketing, I was so broke financially. I was $250,000 in debt. I'd had 2 kids under 1.5. And, you and Brodie started a network marketing company. And I just remember how hard you worked and how professional you were. And you were respectful of myself. So that's why we've had such a great friendship, mate. And, you're one of the great network marketers. When 9 out of 10 people say, network marketing, it's such a crock of, what, and but it's not. I've seen the authenticity in the business, and I've seen the hard work, and through yourself and Brodie. So well done to you.
Thanks. And while we're talking a bit about challenge, adversity, and nearly depression in a way, you got involved in a charity, Love Me, Love You. And where did that come from? Where did that start? And what's the message behind that?
Yeah, for sure. It started about 6, 7 years ago. I was going through some tough times mentally, but I was okay. And a close friend of mine, Lance Piccioni, who was an ex-Hawthorn North Melbourne player, he rang me one time and said, mate, I need to speak to you. I need to see a coffee. And Lance was right open, and Lance said, I feel like I nearly committed suicide. I'm so lost. I'm struggling. And I just said, mate, let's catch up once a week for lunch. I'm here as a friend. I'll never judge you. I love you. And Luke Livingston was another friend who he reached out to, and Livo and I supported Lance as a friend with his lovely family. And Lance came through and he was fine. And he just said 6 months later, he said, I'd love to start a foundation because it's so hard. The suicide rate was growing. He said, I nearly committed suicide. So I want to start a foundation called the Love Me, Love You Foundation. So we got together, Luke, myself, Lance, Brodie came to a lot of the breakfasts we had, and Lance's mum. And we started a non-profit foundation called Love Me, Love You, which is really about mental health and the awareness of mental health and how to treat it, and the prevention of suicide, which has been the biggest silent killer in the last 5 to 10 years. So Lance and a lot of educated speakers now get out there to communities to work, Bunnings and to country towns to speak to people about it. And we have an app coming, and we walk across Melbourne in March called the March With Me, which is on March the 22nd. So it's something that you should look at Love Me, Love You, to raise awareness, because nobody should ever travel their journey alone. And it's all about if you're alone in life, you should be able to ask somebody for help. But it's also for us who are okay to be asking for something, being aware, because a lot of people who are struggling, but we don't think and look at the guy and go, is he okay? So a lot of times we ask, are you okay? And people go, I'm fine. But are you really okay? Are you really okay? No, you know what? I'm struggling. I'm struggling financially, or my wife and I are fighting, or my health's not good, and I'm depressed. And it's all about educating people to love and look after each other.
That's such a powerful thing, and it's like a hidden and underworld thing more often than not. So bringing 100%. Awareness to issues like that is such an amazing thing, and I think giving back and legacy, and I feel this will be certainly a part of the Matty Pillios legacy in the future, is this message and raising awareness with Lance and Luke and Brody and whoever else is involved. So such a powerful thing to do. You're passionate, and I always talk to people, live with passion and purpose. Sport, you're pushing into commentary, you're going to knock off, without doubt, I call you privately the Bruce Buffer or the next Bruce Buffer is. Yes. But there are a lot of UFC fans on here, and that sport is just growing at such an amazing rate. But you spend a lot of time doing a lot of MC roles and edging your way in there. Is that something because you're just passionate about it, or you see a future there, or share a bit about it?
Yeah, look, it's. I always felt like I was an entertainer, and in my 20s I wasted a lot of time out. I played a lot of local footy, and I hosted a TV show on Channel 31 called the Essendon District Footy League. It was a strong comp outside the VFL. It was probably the strongest in Melbourne with the Eastern Footy League. So I hosted their TV show like the Channel 9 footy show, but it was on Channel 31 and got 25,000 viewers a week, not 250,000. So I had that passion to do that, but as I got a bit lost in my 20s, I dropped off. Then when I had the kids with Bell and I needed to make some money, I still had that passion in there to do emceeing and hosting and try to be a star like we all want to be. So I started emceeing a lot of events for experience, and only because I loved the people would ask me. So people would ask me to MC weddings. Then I got some great opportunities to MC and commentate. And I only did some sparring and boxing training over the years. I wasn't a professional fighter, but I started being able to commentate with these guys, and I'd do it for $100 a night. And Belle, my wife, was at home with the kids, and she knew it was my passion. She knew I was not out there drinking and going out socialising with mates. So I gained that experience, and I love it. So the answer to your question is, I always say to my business partners as Marshall White, and I've said that from the day, if I ever leave real estate at Marshall, because I love real estate much, is to replace Bruce Buffer for his job. And Kate, my business partner, she always laughs. She always goes, Matthew, but that she gets it because I've actually got them into. They always like the UFC, but they love the UFC. And I always say, if I'm ever going to leave Marshall White in real estate, and to all my clients out there and all my followers in Australian real estate, it's only to be Bruce Buffer's job. And I know everyone will say, I understand. So yes, I'd love to be Bruce Buffer's job one day, and I've got a couple of mates who work in Vegas head office of the UFC, and I'm coming for Brucey's job.
No, it's great, and look, shoot for the stars. Like that's one of the messages here, and if you unpackage some of our conversation here, it has been about just putting yourself out there. Basically never giving up on your dreams, fighting for what you want, and we're going to talk about real estate shortly, your passion now, but Bruce Buffer has the best job in the UFC, probably, other than Joe Rogan might have a good one, or even Dana White. But why not put yourself out there? And you've done the background work where you are working for $100 a night on a Saturday night when everyone else is out partying. There's an important thing you do. You've got to do your time, and you've got to be patient, and that's why you've always fell on your feet in a good way. So let's talk about real estate. It's a passion of mine. I've done a lot of business over the years, but I still would say I've made the most money, if I was to write collective wealth, out of owning property with over 11 houses.
As we sit in your beautiful $2 million plus property here in Ascot Vale, mate. It's great to be in my old suburb.
But look, tell us about why real estate passion, because I watched you come through that journey as well, where you were a budding auctioneer, and now you're nearly one of the best in Australia, you'd have to say. And is that because of your entertaining? Is that because of your passion and your experience in commentary? You're obviously passionate about real estate. Tell a bit about that story.
For sure, thanks, mate. My dad was a real estate agent when I was young, so I always said to my wife, and I just had it in my head, I didn't want to be an agent. He worked long hours, didn't see him as much as I probably would have wanted. And so I didn't want to ever be a real estate agent. But when I was financially broke 10 years ago, I'd lost the money in the nightclub that I had, and I had a Vodafone dealership, which I worked so hard, and I was as good a sales agent, but the Vodafone network had so many issues that it caused my business to break down. I needed to make some money, so I actually got a job with realestate.com. And the way I got this job was I was emceeing my wife's best friend's wedding, who they divorced a year later. But listen to this story. Emceeing their wedding. I said, I'll MC for free. MC this wedding, cracking jokes, personality. And this guy comes up to me with a glass of champagne and goes, mate, I'm looking for he was one of the bosses at realestate.com. He goes, mate, I like you. We're looking for account managers. And I thought this guy had too many drinks and just trying to pump my tyres up. And I said, I'd love to. Because I was a bit lost with my career. It was 2011. On the Monday, I followed him up. He texts back and says, call me tomorrow. Called him on the Tuesday. Did some interviews with realestate.com. I struggled with focusing and concentration a little bit. I was a slow learner. I went through a 3-month probationary period. Didn't survive. I begged them for one more chance. Went through 3 months. They gave me the job. And then realestate.com was there for 2.5 years, became one of their best people there, but I wanted to make more money. It was capped, as good as you could do. You could probably only make 150 to 200 a year. And I said, I need to make more money. I sat and did a plan with Bell, and I said, the only way I can make more money, I'd love to follow my dreams and be an MC and go to LA and Vegas and try that, but I had 3 mouths to feed. So I said, I need to be a real estate agent. And I said, so it was like I had a big pay hit for 2 years. It was like going to do an apprenticeship. I was hardly making any money. I started in 2015 as an agent, and I was a natural because I love people. I knew property, I'd owned property, but it was hard work. I was in the office till 8:39, Monday to Thursday every night. Friday I'd get home about 5:36. Would rarely see my kids Monday to Thursday. Then on the weekends I was working, commentating, emceeing. So doing 6 days a week real estate to build up the dream of making great money. And it was some of the toughest years of my life when I started real estate, but it's been a great thing, and it's all about planning and thinking that long game.
And look, there's so much, again, like wisdom in that story. If you're really tuning in, like you've got to work for whatever that you want. And Matt, again, sacrifice the long hours, young family at home, and you were still doing the $100 gigs and the free MC gigs and that over the weekend just to get to where you are. And you're now a highly accomplished agent, and now recently getting involved with the business as a whole too.
Yep.
So
that's been awesome, a privilege. It's all been about a lot of people want to be driving at 9 o'clock at night time to do a local school auction. People would be like, why are you doing that for? And it's exposure. I'm on my way up, and I've still got so much to learn, so much to improve. You can never stop growing in life. You've got to have that growth mindset. And still to this day, last year, I'm 40 and a half years old. On Friday nights at 9:30, 10, I'm doing charity auctions for free for local schools, because I know it's going to help them, but it's also going to help myself. It's a great win-win situation in life, Schultz. Win-win situations are the absolute best.
And in regards to that, like we've talked about your rise through 2011 to we're now 2020, so a really...
Where did that go?
Yeah, where did that go? But, you have downtime as well. You spend good high-quality time with your family. You often see you're in Bali and laying it up there.
I wish I was in Europe, but Bali is obviously the budget, and it's great. Family time for me means everything. I wish I had more. With a very close friendship and relationship with my wife, which is awesome. And I always say to everyone, you've got to be best friends you've got to be great friends with your partner as well as husband and wife. You've got to have that friendship. I mean, the thing that kills me, Schultz, is the divorce rate that I've seen recently in real estate is a real eye-opener, and I just urge everyone to work hard in their marriages and communicate. I always communicated to Belinda, my beautiful wife. I said, Belle, I'm doing this for us. Because there was struggle times. There was times we wouldn't see each other during the week, and we'd always just look at each other and go, we're doing this together, and we did it all together. And I would never be where I am without her and some of the other great women I've got in my life. So it's all about communicating through that and working hard and putting yourself out there.
And where's Matty Pillios 2020, like a 3 to 5 year plan? Where do you see yourself heading over the next part of the journey?
I see, good question. I see myself, I'm recently buying into the business now, Martial Art, to become a partner, which is a great honour, and just growing that business and now starting to teach and train and mentor younger agents as well, but obviously grow my asset as a business. And I'd love to be the country's number one agent. I work with some of the best already. I feel like I'm up there. I know I will be the best. Visualization's everything in my eyes. And I looked at my one of my colleagues last year and I said, I'm going to do this amount of money. She looked at me and just laughed at my face. Then she rang me last week and said, I just can't, you were 2% below this ridiculous target you had. And if you just don't aim high and you don't tell yourself you're going to do these great things, you'll never do it. And it's visualization. So I see myself having a great business that's growing, enjoying real estate, being a great dad and great husband, and hopefully still doing some great media and sneaking into the UFC, which is my favourite company outside my real estate company, Marshall White, and working with the greatest company in the world, the UFC, and hanging out with great friends like yourself and everyone else.
No, look, it's been, I really wanted to get you on this show because, I joke and call you the Bruce Buffer of Australia, but it's true, you are,
Thank you.
To everyone. You're to everyone.
Everyone's so good to me.
Everyone knows Matthew Pillios. If you say Matthew Pillios at any event, he sold a phone to me or a house to me or he helped with an auction or an MC gig. You have put yourself out there. And that's what we want people to understand, 100%. The importance of putting yourself out there. So just we usually ask a few questions around, do you have a book or a podcast that you love listening to that someone that's listening to this show could get something out of?
Yeah, before I answer that, the thing about putting yourself out there is stop thinking what others think. I reckon about 6 or 7 years ago, I stopped thinking what others think. Other people's opinion doesn't matter unless it's your loved ones. And because people used to bag me behind my back. And look, Brodie Holland really... He was so instrumental in helping me with my social media. The way he did his social media with Janess and the business he ran with you, he really mentored me with social. I was on Facebook until 2010, and Brodie was like, mate, this is what I use it for in business and family, and he was amazing with that. So I've had great success with my social media, with my career and work. So just don't worry about what other people think. So in terms of a podcast, look, I do listen to them. I've got a guy named Tom Panos. He's a real estate and motivational speaker. He's unbelievable. I had to start listening to him in 2015 when I started real estate, but he's a gun. Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, I follow. Chris Helder is a guy that I met with realestate.com in 2013, and he's become a really close friend of mine. Chris Helder, he's an American Aussie who writes an unbelievable book, so listen to him. And obviously Joe Rogan, but just old school great stories like Conor McGregor I followed since I was young, and just heroes, follow those heroes and follow those stories. But I wish I could read more, but by the time I work 65 hours a week and spend some time with the family, I don't have the time to read, believe it or not.
And what about the best piece of advice you've ever received it could be advice you received as a young boy, it could be, a mentor in business today. What do you would think your best piece of advice you've ever received? Yeah,
I reckon it was what goes around comes around, a bit of a karma thing. If you keep doing the right things, you'll always have the right things be done to you. And if you do bad things, it'll eventually catch up with you. So what goes around comes around was always a big one when I was young. Always respect your elders, even sometimes when they're wrong or you disagree. It was always a big one. And just treat people the way you want to be treated. Treat people the way you'd want your parents, your mum, your sister to be treated is the way you should treat people. And that's why I try to treat people always like gold, because that's the way I'd like my loved ones to be treated, my kids to be treated.
Very good advice. There's lots of advice in that, but there's so much to take away, and just be good to people, and things will usually come around your way. That's always about giving back, and that's massive. And you're probably the number one at giving back from that point of view.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And what about your worst bit of advice you've ever received?
Yeah. I probably haven't. Worst piece of advice would be just go out and live life and party and worry about. I think you've got to plan. The worst thing I wish I did was you got to live life, but I'll probably live life. I wish I stopped drinking and partying in my mid-20s, not my late 20s, early 30s. So it was sometimes when, depending who you're getting advice, you could just go and do that and blow that money and don't. So, not planning and not having structure and a plan when you're too young, I just think that's a joke. I think if you do it right in your 20s, you live your 30s like you should instead of... What I did is I spent my 30s trying to catch up where I should have been. So... You know what? There's no time like the present to plan and get ahead in life.
Absolutely.
Have that balance. Balance is everything.
Yeah, and just look, I wanted to get you on this show. Obviously, you've provided great value in sharing your adversity, but also there's been so many lessons. If you start really unpackaging the lessons, it's a lot of things that I would describe come from a heart-based place and not a head place. It's not you're just doing it because you want something back. It's actually coming genuinely from the heart. So I really do appreciate you coming on this episode. And
thank you for having me.
Is there any last things that you want to share with the people, where to find you, your social media?
For sure, that'd be awesome. Mindset's everything as well. I just believe in strategic and disciplined mindset is important. But at Matt Pillios on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Marshall White Bayside. I do real estate all over Melbourne. I can do work with other agents as well. But find me in Melbourne anytime. I do a lot of extra work on Fox Sports, but thank you for having me. It's a privilege. I know I'm not a celebrity and just to be here, but importantly, the greatest thing in life is to look in the mirror and know you're a good person. That's the best advice I can give. Look yourself and talk to yourself and just say, are you a good person, and be authentic, and that's the best advice I can give anyone.
Good, and thanks for coming on.
Keep loving. Schultz, privilege to be here. And sorry about no shirt today, everyone.
Well done, buddy.
Thank you for having me.